Hi, I'm Megan, and welcome to the Intermish, the show where it's literally the length of an NHL intermission where we discuss teams, memes, trades, picks, and we're so back. Hi, welcome to season 2 of the Intermish. I hope you guys enjoyed your summer. I know I did. And thank you for being so chill about my little break. And so, before we get into today's topic, there are a lot of things that happened in the off-season and in the preseason. So, here are some winners and some losers of the off-season. A winner is Leon Draisaitl, who got married. A loser is me, because there goes my chance with Leon Draisaitl. Frank Nazar is a winner, or Nazar, I don't know. He's a winner either way because he got paid this much money to stay with the Chicago Blackhawks. He's also a loser because he got paid that much money to stay with the Chicago Blackhawks. Kirill Kaprizov got paid this much money, so he's a winner. Trevor Zegras, although a big loser he may be in real life, got reunited, and it felt so good with his bestie, Jamie Drysdale, I believe. Yep. He also found out that seasonal depression is real, so we love a self-aware king. Just he could be a little more self-aware. Everyone was a winner because Marc-Andre Fleury decided to come back for one night and one night only, which is such a punk rock move by Fleury. And I'm not going to lie, I cried when I saw this announcement because he was one of the goalies that I knew other than Osgood from just hockey. And he's a gem of a human being, gem of a literal player, and phenomenal. And to be honest, I hope somebody calls him up in January and we get one more year from Flower. Brad Marchand's a winner because he learned that you can hate the fuck out of somebody, but still come together for a common goal. And we love growth. The losers are Quinn Hughes because his new teammate is Evander Kane. Why would Quinnifer get behind me? Good God. Also, Toronto's a loser because they got rid of Mitch Marner when Mitch Marner wasn't necessarily the entire problem. It was maybe, I don't know, the guy that you picked to be a captain and that his country picked to be a captain. You know what I'm talking about.
It's me. It's Austin.
Austin Matthews, big four-headed bitch. I'm so sorry, Austin. With that hairline, though. Who, if you look at it during the playoffs, I'm pretty sure Matthews barely showed up, and the only ones out there who weren't necessarily going through the motions were Nyes, Nylander, Tavares, Riley, to name a few. Those guys were really giving it their all and playing for a cup where you couldn't find Austin Matthews with binoculars if you tried. It was the same way for him in Four Nations when we look back at it. So Matthews is just kind of going through the motions, it seems. So tragically, a winner in that scenario is Vegas because they got Mitch Marner. Luke Hughes is a winner because he finally got that big boy contract. The Canes are winners because they didn't sign any of those guys. And what I'm going to say on that matter is the following. OJ, we all knew OJ did it, and court found him not guilty. I'm just going to leave that there. And those are the winners and losers of the off season. So, today we're going to go over, I was thinking, because lately in all the games, it's been, this draft pick, and I thought, has there ever been a draft pick that, never worked out? And I'm sure there are plenty, but this one, imagine being labeled the biggest bust in NHL history. So bad that people write think pieces about your career. There were still some. I saw this video, this blog title. People at the time coming into defense of this guy who relatively did suck. Hardcore. So, let's get into this. A little bit of preface before we get into Niall Yakubov's career and what might have gone wrong is we're going to look at the Edmonton Oilers, the shit show that they were, and still, to be quite honest with you, are. The season before, like 2 seasons before, 2009, 2010, they were 25, 45, and 12. And 12. And 12. They stank on ice, quite literally. In 2011, 2012, they were 32, 40, and 10. And keep in mind, they also had the worst front office and a revolving door by Tate McRae of just coaches coming in and out, in and out, in and out. But they had saw this kid, one of their scouts had seen something in a kid from Russia named Niall Yakubov, who had a crisp, hard shot with amazing passes, phenomenal speed, it seemed. And so everyone was just sort of like, okay, we'll put him into consideration. There was then, when it came time to draft, there were other prospects that had piqued the interest of the scouts. They all had a scout meeting with the GM, and they all voted. And it was 9-2, 9 being Ryan Murray, 2 being Niall Yakubov. You're never going to guess who they drafted, guys.
From the Sarnia Sting, Niall Yakubov.
They take the forward, Pierre, and they take a guy who put up Stamkosian like
Yakubov, because I think some of the scouts saw at the time the cracks in the facade that, most people said he had superstar potential. And I'm going to be doing a lot of air quotes. Where's our Chris Farley thing?
I don't understand what's going on in the news.
Who Niall did have a lot of, he had statistically 2 good seasons in the OHL where he was 49 goals, 52 assists, 101 points, followed by another season where it was 39 goals, 38 assists, and 69 nice points. And maybe, it was, wrong player, wrong place, wrong time, wrong environment. But maybe it was just him. See, I get there's a big disconnect with the lack of English because he was born in Russia. It also may have been in a lack of cultural understandings due to the fact that at the time he was the highest drafted Muslim player, surpassing Nassim Kadri. However, the difference between Nassim Kadri and Niall Yakubov was the fact that it always feels weird saying Niall Yakubov. I don't know what it is. Who names their kid Nail? Anyway. It literally said nail. I'm not even, hang on. I'm not even freaking joking you. It says, when I ask it, it's spelled nail. And when you ask, it to speak,
nail.
Yeah, there it is. But you're like, Megan, no, it's Niall. Niall Horan. Niall is spelled Niall. That kid's name is Nail. Anyway, the difference between the two is that Nassim was born in Ontario, Canada, and had already assimilated being, first generation Canadian from a family of immigrants from Lebanon. Good for them. Nail did not have that advantage. However, a big disconnect is Muslims don't drink, and when you're a hockey player, you do be drinking. And I mean, that was kind of, I guess, a disconnect because he couldn't quite bond with the team, maybe, but...
Schultz can't get it through. Here's a shot. Rebound. Scores. Nail Yakubov.
In his draft class, by the way, may I add, was Morgan Riley, Tomas Hertl, Jacob Trouba, Olli Mata, Philip Forsberg, Andrei Vasilevsky, Linus Ullmark, and Connor Hellebuck. A pretty prominent group of people for a draft class that some consider the absolute worst, which, I mean, that is subjective to some people. I think it was just a meh little draft class, minus some exceptional players that are now all-stars. But the draft before that, Edmonton had drafted...
In the National Hockey League Draft 2010, I'm extremely excited to select from the Windsor Spitfires
Taylor Hall.
Taylor Hall. They
are so proud to select from the Red Deer Rebels Ryan Nugent Hopkins.
had drafted Ryan Nugent Hopkins, and they went through the exact same shit that Nail went through. So, what happened? Where was the disconnect? Other than possible, like, cultural differences and the lack of English, there was a lot of red flags that a lot of people seemed to, ignore with rose-colored glasses. For example, some called him uncooperative and sulky. It was also dubbed that he had the worst draft interview potentially of all time due to the fact that he almost fought the Toronto Maple Leafs scout interviewer, John Lilly. And I get it was probably because, well, the most important thing to Nail that was very prominent to people during the interview was that he be drafted number 1. That was his whole big deal, was he was number 1, Schmitty Werman, what is it? Play the SpongeBob clip. He quite literally didn't see why he felt like he was wasting his time being interviewed by teams who would pick him in a lesser round or a lesser number. He wanted to be number 1. And I mean, that's a solid mentality to have, I guess, if you're, good. But the thing is he actually wasn't really good. He had a shot, and that was about it. He had one good thing, and that was it. Some said his speed, like when he skated, some could swear to you he could fly. However, he couldn't. A lot of people said he was a wide track skater. He looked quick from afar, but up close he was slow. Had no defensive knowledge whatsoever, so he couldn't really, go back and play defense. He also barely helped any of his fellow wings, or his center. On top of that, couldn't separate from his defender. And he solely focused on his shot whenever it was out of practice. And he was one of the first one on the ice, last one off. But it was what he worked on, I think, that a lot of people were like, dude, you have a lot more issues than just that. You should probably, be focusing on learning to skate better. He literally only had his shot, and even that wasn't good. Devin Dubnyk tried explaining at one point, who called him an idiot, by the way, literally said this guy is an absolute idiot, tried to explain to him a drill, a low drive from the corner type drill, and Nail is just shooting rockets at Dubnyk the entire time. So he was one of those guys in practice that it was like, well, I guess I'm just going to send it and hurt our goalie. No, you have to take care of your goalie. You don't hit your goalie in the head with a puck. You don't hit the goalie in the head with the ball. You don't tap the glass. It disturbs the fish. The cage, in that case, is the glass, and the fish is the person. Along with that, I mean, he had a shitty, his work ethic was okay, but if even there was any. And I get, at the time, the Oilers were not the greatest, because losing and the lack of established leadership can cause strife between teammates. Along with that, there was some other teammates, Taylor Hall, who were barely picking up the other slack in the team, if not barely ever, if there was any, a work ethic. And like I said, losing does create problematic team, chemistry. I was there. I've been there. Also, it's been seen that he was dramatic, getting injured in one season and absolutely throwing a fucking fit because the Russian coach had dropped him from the World Championships. Stuff like that. There were a lot of also red flags, he basically got outplayed by the Saginaw Spirit during his first when he was first kind of being scouted, and a lot of people kind of overlooked how he just literally got outplayed by a player that was going to be drafted lesser than him. Which, I mean, it can happen any day, anytime. He requested trade. He requested a trade, saw himself in St. Louis, then saw himself in Colorado, and then saw his ass back in Russia. So, what happened? And in my eyes, this is just my opinion. I think it was the entitlement of his attitude. The fact that, he barely, knew English at the time, I'd assume. Cultural differences. Really, like I've stated in this video a million times, the fact that the front office of the Edmonton Oilers was an absolute shit show and still is. And he had no coach really to bond with. And if he did bond with a coach, that coach was fired later. Like, I think one coach got fired via Skype. Like, who does this? Along with his, I'm better than you attitude when it came to the draft, I mean, it just wasn't a good fit. Like, I guess there are just some players that do better at a certain level than they do when they get moved up to the next. And it's up to that player to work up to that potential and to be, one of the best. And he just, I guess, didn't understand that, yeah, you can have the best shot in the league, but you still have to play defense. Like, you still have to redefend. You still have to know how to help on the blue line. Like, you also still have to be a teammate and a good one at that. And I guess he just wasn't that. So yeah, that's my whole little interesting video on a guy that quite literally made history by being the biggest bust in the NHL's history. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I won't have a video next week, but the Intermish is back for season 2. Thank you for sticking with me. And I hope you guys kind of enjoyed this quick little blurb of video about a subject that I found kind of fascinating. Because, I mean, how can you be that bad and still be number 1? Like, that's insane. Oh my God, he was kind of like Lance Stroll. If for those of you who don't know Formula 1, Lance Stroll is a daddy's boy. His daddy's got a lot of money. And Lance was really good at junior go-karting and F2. But then in Formula 1, his dad bought a Formula 1 team just for Lance to race at. And Lance Stroll hasn't really podiumed, I don't think ever, in the recent years. So, yeah, and I'm going to just go ahead and say that Nail Yakupov was the Lance Stroll of the NHL. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you guys in the coming weeks and with coming episodes. And don't worry, Drunk History will be back soon. So thank you very much, and yeah, bye.